Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Linux Diagnostics and Troubleshooting exam EX342. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do, so you know when new content is available. Also, a reminder that these are my practice sessions for the exam. My exam's about a week and a half away, and so I am going through all of the posted objectives from Red Hat and I'm trying to review them, either talk about whatever the subject matter of the objective is or do some examples of whatever the objective is talking about. And at the end of the video, I'll do a little assessment, and if I feel confident with the objective, great. If not, I still have about a week and a half to do some brushing up of topics to be prepared for the exam. That being said, these should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered authoritative training materials. I myself am learning. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing these practice sessions, and I record these last sessions and put them up on the internet in hopes that others that are preparing for this exam might see some of the stuff that I'm doing to practice and get some ideas of things that they can do to practice. But again, these should not be used as tutorials, nor should they be used as authoritative information. I do try to have it accurate, but I'm still learning, so there's a good chance there will be some errors. So moving into the diagnose and troubleshoot file system issues, we're going to look at recover corrupted file systems. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a good tool or way of destroying a file system outside of, just trying to use DD on a block device or something, which I think that would destroy a file system beyond what some of the recovery tools are. So I think what I'm going to do for this practice session is talk about some of the tools and mention some of the implications of working with your file systems if there's an issue. One of the things that you'll sometimes see on a Red Hat system is if there's an issue with the file system, Red Hat will sometimes try to mount it as read-only. I have seen that happen before where there's some corruption, but they get it as read-only to where you might not be able to write to the file system, but you can at least try to copy some data off. In a troubleshooting situation, if you find yourself with some issue with a file system, you can use mount to, let me go into one of my servers. I think lab server 5, I have an extra disk on. We might do some, a VDB here. We might do some playing around with that. If I were to just do the mount command, we see all of the mounts. These are read-write. If you have an issue, you might see that as RO or read-only. So file systems you'll probably commonly be dealing with are going to be XFS and ext4. You do have stratis with Red Hat, but that is like a layer on top of XFS, or rather, that's really not true. Stratis is its own little thing, but it's primarily using XFS for its file systems. It's a way of managing like block devices similar to LVM, and I have not used ZFS, but it is, I think, intended to one day be a competitor to ZFS, but for various licensing things, you'll probably never see ZFS on RHEL, and they seem to be kind of whole hog into working with stratis, but not going to get into stratis for this. Or there might be something that I try to do with stratis just to see how it works. But anyway, so if you have a file system that is giving you a problem, when you are running repair tools, it cannot be mounted. So let's say said special file system was mounted as read-write, we have to unmount that. So let me look at my mounted file systems. None of these should be having problems, but do I not have? Okay, well, we're going to make us a file system, and we will do some work with that. So I'll just do this on the entire block device. Probably not something you would typically do, but so we'll do makefs, xfs, dev, vdb. All right, so now we have a file system. Starting to get late and my brain is not functioning well. So let's try make dir without a slash. Mount test xfs. Awesome. Mount -a, or we'll mount dev vdb to mnt test XFS. See our little mount point there. Let's touch us a file to that. Actually, we'll echo something to it instead. All right, so we have our little file there. Let's say there was some problem with this file system and we wanted to run the XFS repair command. I'm going to take a look at XFS repair. There's a couple of things to note with this. I would first try to run this with the -n no modify mode. So that way you kind of get a report of what's going on with the file system before you're actually trying to make changes to it. One other thing that you might, I'll get to that in a second. I'm thinking about the super blocks on the file system, which it's like metadata that's stored throughout the disk that helps the file system know, what it's. I kind of think of it similar to like partition tables. Basically tell the disk, hey, this is where all your partitions are. The super blocks have information about the file system in that same vein. So if I were to try XFS repair -n on dev VDB, it should complain. Yep, contains mounted writable file system. It's not going to work. So we're going to umount. And we're going to run the repair -n again. Now this takes, hardly any time because, of course, this is not a damaged file system. A couple of things to note here. Let's say that it was able to recover files, but there was some issue with said files. This lost plus found thing, let's see if that actually has now appeared. Oh, wait, I need to remount the file system. Oh, it didn't actually do anything, of course, because I did -n. Do this without -n, and of course, nothing really for it to do. Let's mount the file system again. Since I don't have this in etcfs tab, I can't just do like mount mnt test xfs. Okay, so it didn't make the lost plus found. Sometimes you will have a file put into there and it will be named by its inode. And you might have to figure out like where that file is actually supposed to go. There's some issue where, the file is able to be recovered with XFS repair, but XFS doesn't exactly know where it needs to be. If you had a backup of the file, what you would see in this output is some information that might give you some clue as to where this file lived. And perhaps, let's say you have a system that has the accurate version of that file. You can like check the SHA sum of the inode and such, or you can, if you actually had a straight up backup, you might be able to compare inodes from, or you'll get the inode of the directory the file was in, and you can use the inode of the directory the file was in to find with, I think it's inum is the option for find. I'm not 100. Well, that's going to bother me now. Yeah, inum. It'll find the whatever directory with that inode number, which might give you a clue as to where the lost plus found file needs to go. But that's really, as far as running XFS repair, that's what we got. There is XFS dump, or is it info, or is it meta dump? Let's see. Let's do meta dump dev VDB. Nope, that's not what I'm looking for. Info. This is something that I need to research. It's basically, it will show you where the super blocks are stored. Now, granted, XFS repair, I think, will, if there's some issue with like the first of the super blocks, it will automatically find where the rest of them are to deal with. I can't remember the exact command to dump that. I thought it was like XFS dump, but obviously that is not it. So what we're going to do is unmount this. We're going to make us a new file system on dev VDB. We're going to reformat it. One thing to keep in mind is a command called wipefs that will get rid of any file system signatures that were on your block device. So you won't have issues if you put another file system on it. So we're going to make an ext4 file system. I deal with XFS much more than I deal with ext4, so I'm probably going to forget some commands. Notice it tells us what blocks, super blocks are at. And trying to remember. There were a couple of other E2 commands with ext4. That is nice. I was not expecting that to be a man page for this. I think dump2fs is what I was looking for. Let's see what happens with this. Not copy. Let's go to the end. I know E2fsck for file system check is going to be the repair utility for this. But I wanted to look. Of course, this is a ton of information. It's a 20 gigabyte thing. Thought you'd be able to find or have it list the super blocks again. So that'll be something I need to look up. I think maybe wrong. Hopefully I don't have to deal with this, but I get the feeling that I'm going to need to know about how to get that information from a file system. That's ext4 or XFS. But what we can do here is, this is very similar to XFS repair. You should have your -n option to, well, not answers no to all questions. Yeah, that's basically going to be your check. So let's mount. Of course, if I look into mount test XFS, we're not going to see, oh, we see a lost plus found there now. I wonder if that's just a ext4 thing. It automatically makes that there. But let's run a file, or let's try to run the file system check with it mounted just to see what happens. It should fail, but let's see. Yep, mounted. So mount test XFS. I'm going to run this again, but we're going to do -n. And of course, I don't expect it to actually really do anything because of course there's nothing wrong with the file system. The same idea applies with the lost plus found. It'll have files named with inode, and the output should give you some idea of where these files might have been from, and then you can use some logic and maybe some backups to figure out where these files need to go. I guess the last thing that I will show is the use of stratis. See if I can remember this. It's curious that Red Hat has stuff with stratis, and the reason why I'm harping on this, even though there's absolutely nothing in the objectives that mentions stratis, or at least make sure I'm not going to eat my words. Yeah, there's nothing here that mentions stratis. I remember it from doing my RHCSA exam, and it was one of these, I can't remember what the objective name is now, but the objective was basically about doing stuff with stratis, and I had to dig through like RHEL documentation to find it, and stratis, from what I gather, is still in technical preview, so I'm kind of surprised that on the original RHCSA that you were tested on doing something that really wouldn't be considered for, or at least I would not think it would be considered for production. But because that was on RHCSA and we're having to do stuff with file systems here, I get the feeling it might creep its way into this exam. So let's see if I can remember how to do the stratis thing. So first I'm going to do my wipefs -a on dev vdb. I'm going to get rid of any file signature stuff, and just curious if that's still there with block I. No, it shouldn't be. Good, it's not. All right, so clear this. All right, so stratis. I think I have to install it. So let me install dnf stratis CLI. One of the things with stratis is it's snapshotting, which I think you can do with LVM. I've never actually played with LVM snapshots. I should probably do that sometime. But you can dig in Red Hat documentation, and it talks about using snapshots as a way of like restoring backups, even though snapshots probably shouldn't be considered backups, but maybe in a 3-2-1 thing, that's a very much local copy of data, and then that's one of your ways of having it. Not found. Maybe it's just stratis CLI. Oh, stratis D, that's it. Okay, so now let's see if I can, I'm probably going to have to use documentation to get through it, but let's say on the exam this is the deal, and I will probably be using documentation to get through it. So I think the command is stratis block dev and then the name of the block device I want to use, or of course I could use a partition as well. Block dev, maybe block dev create. I'm making a pool of those. Yes, so stratis pool create. See what happens with that. Now, I did that mainly because sometimes the error will give you some clues as to what you need. Yeah, I got to have the pool name and then the block dev. That makes sense. So we're going to call it test pool, and we're going to be using dev vdb. Yep, you have to make sure that Stratis is running. Remember, with systems, with Red Hat exams, basically you need to enable everything because it has to survive reboots. Okay, so we made our pool. Now, I think what I can do is stratis file system create, and we will, no, let's do this. It'll give us an error. So we have to give it the pool name. So that's test pool, and we have to give the file system a name and call it testfs. All right. Should show up with block ID. Yep, dev mapper stratis. Ugh, that's disgusting. So I'm actually going to add this to fs tab using UUID, and we'll mount it to the MNT testfs. So it's vi etc fs tab default 00. Okay, and there's our terrible looking Stratis thing. So off the top of my head, I don't know what file system checking looks like with Stratis. I might spend a little bit of time looking that up, but I do know you can make snapshots. Let's make our little test file. Okay, so now we're going to take a snapshot, see if I can remember this. Stratis file system snapshot, and we have to do that there. Yep. All right, so we have to give it the pool name. That was test pool. Origin name. It's basically going to be the file system that you're snapshotting, and we'll do test snap 1 for this. And let's do stratis list. You can see how often I work with Stratis. Stratis pool list. Yep, and then I think we can do a file system list. Notice we have two file systems listed here because the snapshot is its own file system that you can have. I am curious. Yeah, I figured that wouldn't work. File system snapshot list. All right, let me look at block ID. I'm curious to see if that'll also be there. Yeah, so it's also there with block ID. So what we could do, let's say that we go in and delete our file. All right, file is gone. So we could recover this from our snapshot. You should be able to mount this snapshot and just copy the file over if we wanted. Or what we can do, even though it's technically sound, it feels dangerous to do this. I'm actually going to change my etcfs tab. There's a reason for this. Since I use UUID. So what we're going to do is stratis file system destroy, and the pool name test pool file system test fs. Might not be able to do this because it's mounted, but let's see what happens. Yeah, so let's unmount test xfs. Now we'll destroy the file system. Then what we could do if we wanted, we would take a new snapshot of test pool test snap 1, call that snapshot testfs, and then if I do a mount-a, and there's my file back. That feels very clunky to me. It's kind of nifty that you can do it, and I remember reading this in the Red Hat documentation, which is kind of why it stuck with me. But I could potentially see needing to do something like that on the exam, even though Stratis is not mentioned in the objectives. I just remember it being a thing with RHCSA, and I could see it come back. Hopefully not. Hopefully I won't have to touch Stratis. I know I don't touch it, day to day in my job, but there it is. So I think for recovering file systems, the basic things is, you run the repair commands, and if hopefully that works. If it doesn't, it's revert to backup, which I guess I'm not sure if you can use XFS repair with a Stratis managed XFS file system. That might be something worth looking up. But otherwise, it's check lost and found for any orphaned files, my inode, and try to get those files back to their home. But I think I would probably do okay with whatever the exam asked me to do with trying to recover corrupted file systems. So I'm going to consider this a pass. Hopefully you found the video useful. If you did, make sure you do click like. I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do and click the notification bell so you know when new content comes available. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.